and it's their intrinsic
And then, this food basically robs.
sound, feasible, sound like.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Now, for hundreds of years, mankind has debated over the whole question of who or what is God? What is God exactly? And the more and more you look at it, the more you cut away all the bullshit, you can see that, God is just a man-made word. God is something that we call this thing that we think created everything. I prefer the term creator because creator has a little bit of mysteriousness to it, because after all, we don't really know who or what God is. We know that something created all of this. Who or what that is or what force that is, we do not know. So the term creator seems more fit than God. And the whole thing is, when you start looking at everything that man has called God, we can see clearly that this God or these religious deities have not come forward and have recognize themselves or have called themselves God or the names that we call them. We have not had a God come down and say, hey, I'm the guy that you talk about in the religion. I'm the guy who you talk about in your books. Nobody has validated themselves as the God. Now, for hundreds of years, as I said, we have debated this fact. But when you go back to the ancient world, they were very clear on who or what God exactly is. And when you pay attention and you start looking, you can see that they worship the sun. Now, we all heard the stories about how bad it was, back during those times, during the beginning ages when, it was not, electricity and things of that nature. And when it got dark at night or, pitch black, that things came out and hunted people and killed people and stuff like that. So, of course, the sun, rising in the morning, being the risen savior, so to speak. You guys know about all this stuff. That, the sun was looked at as a savior, as something to be worshipped, as saving people's lives, which it actually does. So again, I like to use the term creator because creator is so, elusive, because we just don't understand exactly what it is. We know that the sun has properties and the sun does things to keep us alive. So when we go and we look at, plants, we can see, as far as our vegetation and our plants, our food source, how the sun is very important in sustaining us. Now, we know that plants use the sun to get energy. They get energy from the light of the sun. And because they get this energy, they can take the carbon dioxide out of the air. They can take the glucose from out of water, which glucose is a sugar, and they store that sugar and save it for energy later. Now, because they can do this, they also, build up a lot of vitamin D, which vitamin D is a nutrient that, animals need and that we need as well. So, when you look at the plants, trees, the animals and everything like that, how we all have this relationship, and it really starts with the sun. So you can see how they could worship the sun, how the sun could be looked at as a God figure. I mean, when you look at plants and you see that, fruit and stuff like that growing off of it, and that we can actually eat this stuff and it will sustain us and keep us alive, then you can see that, when you start tracing this stuff back to the power of the sun, you can see why the sun is worshipped. Now, also, we know about the sun and the water cycle. So you have the sun, which basically heats the surface of the water, and the water begins to evaporate, and it gets light and it floats up. As it gets higher and higher, towards the cool air that's in the sky, it becomes starts to solidify, starts to turn back into like droplets. And what happens is, at that level, condensation happens, and this is how clouds are formed. So eventually you have these droplets that, the whole process keep happening, and the droplets build up and build up and build up, and the cloud can't contain it, for much longer. So, this is how we get rain. So again, once again, you have the sun that is the cause of all this, because the sun heats the surface of the water and causes the evaporation, then the condensation, then the rain. Again, without the sun, we won't be able to get this water. So again, when you go to the Bible, when you look at, God or Jesus turned water into wine. Well, without the sun, Jesus is the sun. Without the sun, causing it to rain, those grapes won't grow, and, they won't be able to use them to create wine. So there you go, water into wine. It's that simple. So now, of course, you guys understand all this already. So why did I go through this? Most people who read the Bible don't understand when the Bible is pointing out the fact that the God of the Bible is the Son. It's a lot of Bible verses that you can go through and see the Bible calling God the Son. So you guys understand these principles. You understand the power of the sun and little things like how the rain works and how, plants grow and everything like that. It's easy, simple stuff, but some people don't really understand this stuff. So when you take these properties and start looking into the Bible, you can see how they are basically copying off the effect the sun has on us and, the world, the planet, and giving that power to the God of the Bible. So when we look at Job 36 here, it's saying, remember that thou magnify his work, which men behold. Every man may see it. Man may behold it afar off. Behold, God is great, and we know him not. Neither can the number of his years be searched out. For he maketh small the drops of water. They pour down rain according to the vapor thereof, which the clouds do drop. 30 says, behold, he spreadeth his light upon it, and covereth the bottom of the sea. I'm going to skip to 32. With clouds he covereth the light, and commandeth it not to shine by the cloud that cometh betwixt. 37:18 says, hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as a molten looking glass? Teach us, we shall say unto him, for we cannot order his speech by reason of darkness. Now go back and read everything I just read and understand how this is talking about the sun. I mean, come on. It's so simple when you read the verses that it's talking about the sun. And I'm going to go over here to chapter 38, starting at 11. It says, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further. And here shalt thou waves be stayed. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the dayspring to know his place? Now, all you got to do is go back and look at these verses, reread them, understand it's talking about the sun, the spreading of the clouds and, making the dew drop and the rain fall and all of this. This is talking about the sun. Clearly, it's talking about the sun. Go read them for yourself. Now, when you go back and look at verse 38, chapter 38, verse 11 of Job, when it says, hitherto thou shalt come, but no further. Now, remember in the movie, The Da Vinci Code with Silas, that verse comes up in a part when he's following the rose line and he goes into the church and he breaks open the floor. What does he pull out? He pulls out that verse, Job 38:11. What is it written on? It's written on the sun. That is trying to tell you something. That is definitely put in there for a reason to get you to understand that Job, in these verses, 38, and you start reading before the verses I just read, it's metaphorically talking about the sun. It's clear as day. There's no way you can look at these verses and not get the depiction, the whole, the purpose of the sun, the things the sun do, the actions of the sun. It's talking about the sun and calling the God son. Now, when we go and read Joshua, and I went through this in the previous video, that last verse and this verse right here in Joshua, I talked about this. It says, then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, sun, S-U-N, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed until the people who had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jazer? So the sun stood still in the midst of the heaven and hastened not to go down about a whole day. Now, verse 14 is where it really, it puzzles you. You have to read it. And it says, and there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Now, when you pay attention to that, it just clearly called the sun the Lord. It doesn't get any more clear than that. It clearly called the sun the Lord. Now, if you take that verse to be true, and the Lord hasn't hearkened into the voice of a man before that or after that, then you have to completely discount everything that Moses went through, everything that Noah went through, because the Lord obviously hearkened to these men and men after that. Now, I understand it's going to be hard for some people to accept the fact that the Bible is talking about the sun because of ignorance. You have to really seriously think about it. First of all, when you look at what the sun does for the human race, I mean, without the sun, we cannot exist. It's just that simple. So people would rather accept the doctrine of a man and accept the fact that a man who nobody has ever proven has done anything for mankind. People will rather accept these falsities, this fairy tale, as Jesus or this God of the Bible being the actual true God, the savior of mankind, when the sun, when you can really understand how people would worship the sun, because without it, we are nothing. We don't exist. We can't eat. We can't breathe. Now, it's clear to anyone who is paying attention when you look at the church, when you start looking at religion, there is obvious sun and moon worship, clear as day. When you look at the Vatican, you can see it everywhere. You know, you see right there, he has the sun and the crescent moon at the bottom. We know in Islam, you have the crescent moon and the star. This is all sun worship. I don't even have to get into the whole zeitgeist thing. I know you guys seen it already in all the, the comparisons between Jesus and the sun. This stuff is not a joke. It's obviously clear. There is a comparison. There is, somebody whoever put this stuff together copied the trace of the sun and gave it to Jesus Christ. It's just that simple. So, a couple people asked me about this stuff, and this is the reason why I'm putting out this video. And I want people to understand. I know this stuff is like basic for you guys, and you guys already know this stuff already. But there's a lot of older people who have no clue, what we talk about, who watch my videos. I know I have like a group of people in a couple old folks' homes who send me emails who talked about, just asking me simple questions like this, and they heard about Jesus being the son. So I'm really doing this video for people who need to get this information on a basic level, but also I want you guys to understand, how important the sun is to us, because it's going to help you out in the next Mythology DVD, so you can understand why the sun was deified and, worship and, given the title of God. You got to understand this stuff. So if you don't get it on this basic level, you're not going to understand in part 2, which will be coming out soon. You also have to understand why nature is worshiped, why nature is deified, because, you have the sun, but without the sun, nature can't run its course. Nature does everything, in cycles and courses. And if it goes off course or something messes up, it corrects itself and, it starts to cycle over or, does something to alter the cycle in order to cure itself. Everything that nature does is what's supposed to be done. So when we say stuff like you act like an animal, animals do what they are supposed to do. Animals do the correct thing. We are the ones who are out of tune. Animals are in tune. The plants are in tune. Nature is in tune and aligned with the, universal God force, or with nature. This is why they worship nature, because nature is true. It does everything it's supposed to do. Nature is not trying to impress anybody. It's going to do what it needs to do. So understand that. This is why, everything that was done in nature was mimicked. They was trying to get back into this, this cycle with nature. So, we know that starts with the sun. So understanding the principles of the sun and, the properties of the sun and what the sun does and how it relates to nature was something that you need to understand and something that they follow closely. So now, of course, without the sun, then nature can't run its course and, animals and plants will not be in tune. Now, that's something we have to think about. I talked about this in the Mythology DVD. So you have animals, like lions and, predatory animals who eat meat. So if animals are in tune, we know that these animals are in tune. They can communicate with each other. If a pack of lions can do something as tough and sophisticated as, coordinate an attack on a buffalo, to where they chase down a buffalo and it runs directly into the waiting pack of lions, and they jump out from behind bushes and, they finish it off. This is a sophisticated, coordinated attack that lions do with no verbal communication. So we know they are in tune. So lions eat meat. So we know if they are eating meat and they are in tune, then why would meat be bad for us? And I talked about this in the DVD, and I'm going to talk about it briefly here. So now I talked about this in the Mythology DVD, Preparing for the Mythology Volume 1. about meat and how the ancient Egyptians did in fact eat meat. They had a diet that consisted of, meat, fish, and, eggs as well. So the thing is, back then during ancient times, you had to be wealthy, to eat meat because it had to be prepared a certain way, and not everybody had that skill. It was a skill to prepare meat. So the whole thing is this: when you look at the lion the lion has a capacity for meat just like we do. Now, a lion's capacity for meat is about 66 pounds of meat per feeding. So basically what happened is if a lion reaches that capacity of 66 pounds, what it'll do is it will fast for, about a week and will not eat any more meat again. We also have a capacity for meat, except for ours is about 0.63 grams per pound that we weigh a week, of meat. So basically 0.63 grams of meat per pound that you weigh. So that's going to average about between 400 and 600 grams of meat per week that you should consume. So to put that into context, about 5-ounce steak is about 80 grams of meat. So you can't eat 6-7 steaks in a week. You're going to go over that capacity. Because the ancient Egyptians understood this, they could keep their intake of meat at a certain level. The reason why people tell you not to eat meat here, and I tell you, people like Dr. Sebi and everybody else, is because the meat is not clean. You don't know where it came from. They know where their meat came from. They prepared it correctly, and they stayed within the level, the guideline of meat that you should eat as far as our body's capacity. When you exceed that capacity, you can get sick, and when you eat dirty meat, diseases can happen or what have you. So this is the whole reason why, people tell you to stay away from the meat and, watch what you eat and just really don't mess with it, because you really don't know what's in it and where it comes from. But it is possible to eat meat if it's clean and you stay within the capacity of meat. And, if you don't, get the protein, there's so many proteins that's specifically in meat and nothing else that the brain needs. Remember, meat is a brain food. This is why the ancient Egyptians ate it, because it's a brain food. It helps your brain. It gives your brain certain nutrients that no other anything can give you but meat. So they ate it, and it's something that people need to understand, that if they really look into how meat is supposed to be prepared and eaten, that they can also eat it as well if they stay within the guidelines and act accordingly. And the problem is, instead of us eating nature or eating natural, we eat, lab-made meat and, genetically altered and all kinds of stuff that's in our stores. And this is the problem. This is why people tell you, not to eat meat, as I said, because the meat is not clean. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what was done to it. So to avoid any, health issues, it's better to just not touch it at all. Leave it alone unless you are preparing the meat yourself personally. So now what happened is you have the Egyptians basically take the sun and they created stories, surrounded, basically pointing out the properties of nature and the sun. That's what all of the Egyptian mythology is about. It's taking the attributes of the sun in nature and creating characters out of it, and, making stories up so people can understand, the nature of the sun and of reality of, nature. So, we do this with teaching kids the ABCs. You put it into a song. It makes it easier for them to learn. Tying shoes, you make a song out of it. It's easier for kids to pick up. So this is basically what they did. They make stories out of, what they wanted to teach society. And this is basically what the Bible and a lot of religions copy. So when you look at Jesus Christ, paralleling the sun and everything like that, they got it from ancient Kemet. I got videos on all this where I went into, the hidden meaning of the Bible and what the Bible was actually trying to tell you, what Jesus is actually trying to tell you. And I went into all that in That's Game, the Bible and Christianity Finally Explained. Make it through the whole video. It's 6 hours long. If you do, you will get all of the information from out of that video. I get people who comment on it and who talk crap about it because they didn't watch the whole thing. There is no refuting that video. And anybody who's seen the whole thing understand what I'm talking about. There's no refuting it. So if you didn't watch it all, trust me, you missing out on that one. But this is what happened. This is what's going on. It's the sun. God is the sun. It's just that simple. We don't really have to get into a big whole topic about it, but I want people to really understand how important the sun is and how it could be deified and how it should be deified. And people get upset when we talk about sun worship, and some people look at it as pagan or as devil worship, people worshiping the sun, the very thing that is actually keeping you alive on this planet, and without it, none of us, good or bad, could live. It's just that simple. I don't care who you is or what you worship. If we don't have a sun, you're not living. You're not going to survive. It's just that simple. So you can understand how back then, before, the bombardment of all this religion and everything else, how people could look at the sun and say, you know what, without this sun, we wouldn't be here. The amazing part about it is how they understood what the sun could do that long ago. How they understood the properties of the sun, and that the sun did, make the plants grow and, basically cause this whole chain of events in nature where everybody is basically feeding off the sun. Now you have to ask yourself, when the English language was created, basically at the height of Christianity, you have to think about why would they make, the word sun, S-O-N, sound like, sun, S-U-N. Why would they do that? Why would they make good, sound like God, and evil sound like devil? They created this English language for a reason. As I said, Hebrew created for Judaism, and Christianity, English, Islam, Arabic. So you understand that these languages had to be created to basically immerse people within these religions. And I talked about this in all my videos on these religions, and English is no different. But you have to think about that. It's not a coincidence. As I said, there's many secrets in the Bible when you get into it. Some people choose to worship the book and not read the book and believe everything that every preacher has told them about the book. The book is not proven. The Bible is not proven. It's not based on proven history, which is why it requires faith. And I always say that because people don't realize it, and they don't realize that we don't have the original books of the Bible. We don't have what you would consider concrete proof that the book is real. I mean, at some point, anybody with a rational mind has to look at this stuff and start seeing that, stuff is not true. And if you have not done any research in the Bible, then you have no business challenging or trying to debate anybody about the Bible, because you have no proof. It's not based on any kind of proof. And there's too much proof against the book for anybody with a rational mind to ignore. It's not so bad when you think about the fact that they basically took the sun and created the Bible and so many other things out of this, out of nature, out of reality, out of the principles of the Bible. Now, a lot of the Bible stories, I mean, they are based on other things and have different meanings within them. And that's a totally different video when you start reading some of these stories and you understand what it's really talking about as far as things like alchemy and mathematics, geometry. And, it's deep to people who are in the know, people who really get into the Bible as far as the, the secrets of the book. This is like way far advanced for anybody who's just a knee bowing, worshiping Christian who thinks the Bible is everything. You have no clue of, how lost you are, one, and how much you are missing out on by being, hypnotized by this book. So now I don't need to get too deep into this whole thing. I wanted to just put this out for the people who asked for this video, and just to get people thinking about this a little bit more when we get into the Mythology Volume 2, preparing for the Mythology Volume 2, just really have a mind of how people looked at the sun, how the ancients looked at the sun. I mean, when you go back and look at so many different civilizations, and we see sun worship, the Mayans, the Incas, when you start looking at Hindu religion and Asian religions, the zodiac itself, I mean, centered around the sun, the animals and everything like that. That's there for a reason. It's not a coincidence. And the simple fact that Jesus is, the Son of God, S-U-N, 12 disciples, you guys know about this already, 12 signs of the zodiac. It's all about the sun. It's not that hard, people. The halo around his head is, representing the sun. Jesus walking on water. It's the sun setting on water. Come on, grapes, water into wine. It's simple. Without the sun, there will be no rain. And without the rain, the grapes can't grow. So the sun has turned water into wine. This is all basic stuff. But I want you to understand this and just really get a level head on how they deified the sun and why they deified the sun. And when we start getting into the mental nature and you start understanding about the energy, and it's much deeper than this, because in part 4, I get into negative ions. And you got to understand, this is big stuff right here. It's deep. So part 4 actually will be out this week, any day now. And then part 2 of Mental Nature DVD will be out. And I'm telling you, part 4, I went to the Grand Canyon for part 4 of Saturn, Satan, and God, Nature, Reality. I did I wrapped up there, finished my shoot there. I've been there 3 times, to knock out this video. But I really want you guys to really just think. And there's a lot more that I left out that I'm going to get into in the Mental Nature DVD on the sun, why it's deified. And I mean, it would be just so easy to say, well, yeah, of course the sun does this, it does that. So what? There's a lot more to it. We're going to get into all that. But I wanted to put this out and get this information out so people can really get this basic understanding about the sun. You already know what it do. You deal with it every day. It's not that, not that hard. But thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next video.